All right, we have a quorum. We'll call the second meeting of October together for the Town of Liberty Grove Town Board. The clerk will notice all supervisors are present, in addition to the administrator and the clerk treasurer. Welcome and thank you for coming. If you wouldn't mind turning your cell phones either on vibrate or off, is to not interrupt the meeting. And a reminder to the board to please speak into the microphones. Would you please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Okay, next we need to approve the agenda. Any comments, questions on it?
I'll make a motion, we approve the agenda as written.
I'll second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion is carried. We have the minutes of the October 7th board meeting. Are there any additions or corrections to those?
I move that we've approved.
Second.
Motion by Farber, seconded by Gaz. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. And then the special board meeting of 9/16. Any additions or corrections? Seeing none, I'll make a motion to approve as presented. Is there a second?
I'll second that for you, John.
Mulligan. All in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion is carried. Next is the treasurer's report. Janet?
In the municipal checking account, we began with a balance of $123,923.14. Let's see, what did we do? We moved money from the money market account into the municipal checking, and then we transferred it to the regular checking. We got a little bit of interest, and that brought that balance to $123,925.12. In the money market account, we began with a balance of $1,232,546.64. Transferred to the municipal checking, and interest brought that balance to $632,679.74. In the regular checking, we began with $96,077.24. Deposits and transferred, the payroll taxes, payroll and disbursements brought that balance to $175,271.12. The utility fund is at $565,988.49, with a balance in all town accounts at the end of September of $1,497,864.47.
Any questions anybody has?
Quickly, Jack, the $512,000 on the disbursements up there,
Yes,
what was that for, basically? Is that
checks written in the month of September, which were
approved?
Yeah.
approved.
Okay.
Any other,
Debt payments in there, that's why it's big.
any other questions? Then I'll make a motion to approve the treasurer's report as presented,
I'll second that.
seconded by Gaz. All in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion is carried. And next we have the bills. Are there any questions?
I have a question. Hawker's Excavating
Number-
says stump,
number 9.
grind stumps. What was that for?
Grinding stumps. At the pit, the brush and stuff
Yeah.
that we haul in off of the roadwork, parks, et cetera.
So I have a question just in general on that. We pick it up and we haul it to the pit and then we chip it. Do we have a chipper? You can just chip it when you go down the road?
Takes forever. Not in that quantity. We've got, then you gotta have another truck out there. You chip it into the truck and then you gotta wait till they haul it out to the pit, bring it back, or up here where we're gonna start hauling up here in the spring. So, it's just, it'll take forever.
So that's sort of like a mulch that you gain.
You're right.
So is that out here piled up so people can take it?
We'll start it in the spring when people are doing their spring work.
Well, we just paid $9,000, must have a ton of it someplace.
Big pile out there
It's out here, though.
Yeah.
at the pit.
Okay. And people can come and just take a couple yards of it? What's the deal?
Well, yeah,
When
Okay.
it comes over here,
Yeah, they can't get in the pit, because that's.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
We'll bring it over here in the spring and then they can just
all right.
haul it away like they had been in the past.
So they really weren't grinding stumps, they were cutting,
Good.
grinding the brush from the clearing of like Beach Road?
Stumps and brush and,
Yeah.
wood.
Right. It's one heck of a grinder.
Does the job.
Yeah, Pat said he accidentally got a bumper in there and it disappeared.
Wouldn't take long.
No. All right.
Any other questions anybody has? If not, I'll move the approval of the payment of the bills. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Seconded by Farber. All in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion is carried. Okay, next is public input. You can address the board on any subject and also on the agendized subject. So any general comments anybody has to make? All right, anybody want to address any of the agendized items? All right, moving on then.
Hold it, there's,
Oh, I'm sorry, yes.
Can I just make a comment about the tower ordinance?
Sure, if you wouldn't mind stepping to the podium, please.
Sure. Yeah, I've been working with the county economic,
Good.
Name, please. Name.
I'm sorry, name is Peter Brooks. Any other information? Okay.
Thank you.
I just started working with the Door County Economic Development Council on the Tech Committee. And, excuse me, we worked to try to stop the county from passing that ordinance because we felt that it was anti-business and actually anti-resident in the way it was set up. And I just wanted to urge the town council, or I forget the exact title that you guys use, but to go ahead and opt out of the Door County ordinance is passed, because I think that, it's a very negative thing. Those of us who are not in range of Door County broadband, basically are subject to the monopoly of Frontier, which if you read any of the internet forums, and I don't know if any of you do, but, they have a very poor reputation countrywide, and they actually provide very poor service here in Door County. But we have no alternative if we don't have access to Door County broadband, which, from what I have heard and talked to people about at this point, provides a pretty decent service. So that's really the sum total of my comments. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
could I ask you a question,
Yeah.
please? The Peninsula Pulse, my name's Hugh Mulligan, I don't know if you've ever met. Anyway,
Yeah.
they had a real nice article on this. I don't know if
Yes,
you
I
caught that.
did read it.
Yeah. And so then I called Mariah Good and talked to her at length about this, talked to her. And I have a question, a concern, and maybe it's not a concern that I shouldn't have,
Well,
but,
this is,
pardon me?
we're going to come up to this on the discussion later on,
Uh,
but go
well,
ahead.
can I
No,
ask him the
Go
question?
ahead, yeah.
If you bring your own thing into existence, your own ordinance, would you not have to also not only address broadband, but all towers? That's just a general question.
It depends on, the way I understand the statute is that there were some exemptions put in. For instance, there's a very large ham radio tower, actually right in the back of my house, which is exempt specifically, ham radio is specifically exempt from the ordinance. And this was originally for towers, I'm trying to remember the number, I think it was under 80 feet, were exempt from the ordinance. And then this is now bringing them under that ordinance and putting more regulation as well as additional monies to be charged for a company that's trying to get itself off the ground here and grow in Door County. And I would think that that's something not something that we would want to, stop or make more difficult, let me put it that way.
Okay?
Yep.
Good.
All right,
Thank
thanks.
you very much.
Could you spell your last name, please? We didn't quite get it.
Yeah, it's Peter Brooks, Brooks.
Thank you.
Okay, anybody else? If not, we'll go on to committee reports. Anything from the Plan Commission?
The only thing that we have going on right now is the reopening of the comprehensive plan, and we just finished up chapter 2, is it? No, chapter 3, housing, and the next session we'll be starting with chapter 2, which is agriculture and natural resources. So plodding along.
I have a question for Nancy. How many changes are you actually experiencing doing this?
Significant changes as far as, our motto is less is more, basically. In 2001 and 2003, when we were going through it, we were assisted by Bay Lake
Planning.
planning, resource planning. And they had a pretty cumbersomely large boilerplate that they used for all the towns. And what we're finding, for instance, in housing, is that the projection for Liberty Grove population and Liberty Grove necessary housing was way off. And so as we find things like that that are inconsistent, the population has not grown nearly as much as was projected. We're looking at the 2010 census and correcting those and taking out some specifics that are in there that, for instance, necessitate constant tweaking. We're putting in a few more generalities and making it a document that's, instead of being, pick it up and it's this thick and it's heavy, and I don't think people really read it.
And make it a readable.
Exactly. We're simplifying it, and every place that we're simplifying, we're adding links and notations where if you want to find out more, go here, go there, call here, so that the person who wants the tome that's this thick can get there and get that amount of information. The person who wants to see what the 20-year plan is can do it in a concise way and research any farther on their own.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, going on to Highway Committee, discussion, possible action on tax bill insert. Gary, you want to make a motion to place this with the tax bill? And then we can discuss it.
Yes, I would make a motion that we submit in the tax bill a copy of the ordinance which states what an excerpt from the ordinance, let me put it that way, which states what the normal width of a driveway should be and what the resident is required as far as maintaining it. We've had some
Well,
complaints
okay.
from the fire, no, okay, that's it.
We need a second, then.
Okay.
Then we can go through the discussion.
I'll second.
Okay, seconded by Cavazos.
We've
Okay.
had some instances where particular emergency vehicles cannot get down driveways because the driveways, when they were put in, were 12 feet wide. And since that time, the driveway gravel has disappeared and the side growth has just creeped in and in and in. So now you've got an 8-foot driveway, maybe, and with a fire truck being 10'3" with the mirrors, you run into some problems. Some of the driveways are like the winding road going to Northport instead of a fairly straight shot. So there are some vehicles that cannot get around the curves and cannot get to the houses, so they have to haul their hoses. So we want to make people aware of what what the ordinance includes as far as what the driveway width should be, and take it from there, see what, if people will cooperate and take care of their driveways.
Anybody have any questions or comments on this?
I'd like to comment if I
Go
could.
ahead.
I think the concept of keeping the driveways clear, both width and height-wise, is admirable, and I think it's necessary. But I think a general thing in the tax notice is kind of a waste of ink. I think it'd be much more effective to go around and look at driveways, and if, John, your driveway was inadequate, send a letter to John and say, John, your driveway needs fixing up. I think that'd be a much more effective way to use our resources than to just print a general flyer within the tax bill.
I think that was discussed at Highway, was it not?
Yeah, the idea of hiring somebody to, well, even if we took just the registered voters, the 1,173 registered voters, and had somebody go and survey each individual driveway, would probably be very time-consuming and expensive, much more expensive than putting a flyer in a tax bill that we're already putting postage on.
I believe the county has the same regulations. Just ask the county to look for them.
Okay, anybody else have a question, comment? I know Chris Hecht has looked at this and is in agreement with it, and I believe Mike Walker, the chair, agreed with it as well, so.
I mean, no one can argue against making the driveways accessible. But I think it's
Well,
got to be effective, and I just don't think this would be an effective.
Well, we do have the possibility of, if you put this into a firm ordinance, well, it isn't an ordinance, come think about it. We do have the provision of fines. But I think the discussion at the Highway at that point in time was, let's take this step first and see if it has any effect. And now, when people apply for a new building permit, the highway ordinance is part of that building permit. They have to, certify what their driveway, width and so forth will be, so.
I think there should be, if possible, if we do vote to send out the notice, the bill insert, that it should state why we're doing this. And we're doing this because of the need for emergency vehicles to approach residences, which obviously is in the homeowner's or property owner's best interest on the one hand, and that there are consequences in terms of fines, not to mention risking their health and their safety on the other hand. Just to sort of, rather than just have the ordinance in there, it should be why the town is doing that. Just a little statement to the effect.
The idea was to couch the statement in the fact that it's in the public interest,
Oh,
in
then
your interest.
that would be fine then.
you know,
Yeah, because all it says is just to put the
Yeah, the way I worded it, it was just put the.
or
portion
portions
of
of
the
the ordinance, right.
Okay, any other discussion?
This was tried many years ago, what you had mentioned, and there were inspections of driveways done, but it didn't go anywhere, essentially, so.
Did they enforce the ordinance? Was there an ordinance in place then with fines?
The ordinance was in place, there wasn't any citations or anything, it just made people aware, and some letters were sent out to various people, but
See, I don't think people are going to change it unless they're threatened with a citation. No different than the trees along Beach Road.
Any other comments? All right, we have a motion and a second on the floor. All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries 4-1. Okay, Parks and Properties, report, anything?
No, it's nothing to
Nothing?
report.
Fire Board, Lou?
This year's fire and EMT calls are on par to exceed all previous years, should they continue in the trend they are. Yet, at the same time, firefighter and EMT numbers are steadily decreasing. This entry-level class for this fall will hope to have 3 trainees. They usually have a 50% retention on that. In fact, just as a side note, Wisconsin lags behind every other state in the union in terms of what constitutes the minimum level of training hours for firefighters. there have been, with heating season starting, an increased number of calls involving carbon dioxide being emitted into the house. And at the same time, the department takes care of doing what they can do if it's rescue, but they have no way to enforce the residents to have a working CO2 detector. The Firefighters Association, which is really one of the most under-recognized associations in the community, the Sister Bay Liberty Grove Firefighters Association donated $60,000 for the department's purchase of extraction equipment or new extraction equipment. And then in 2017, there will be a proposal for a capital expense in the area of between $125,000 and $150,000 for the replacement of what they call the brush truck, which in 2017 will be 30 years old, and which, as we learned at the last fire board meeting, basically involves a firefighter standing on the bumper of the truck as it goes through fighting brush fires, as opposed to something a little bit more safety oriented. But again, I don't want to ever lose an opportunity to mention the fact that in the current budget, through no fault of the towns, but in the current budget, we have underfunded both the towns and the fire department's capital fund, which we hope to remedy as the as the debt is serviced.
Okay, any questions anybody has? All right, going on to Resolution 15-7, Neptune Dive Club staircase. Lou, you want to make a comment on this?
Yeah, this is, if you recall, the proponent of the staircase had come before us last year, and with the idea that the coastal management agency that's involved said that they would provide money if the town came up with $15,000. And needless to say, with trying to bridge the gap between the revenue we have and the expenses, which is a $440,000 gap, $15,000 on a staircase, as nice as it might be, was not in the cards. So the coastal management agency then asked at least to have, for consideration for a subsequent year grant, which they have to file before the beginning of November, the first week in November, that at least for the coastal management service to consider granting funds for the staircase. They already have funds, by the way, from Raybrook, from the Door County Community Association, I don't know the title exactly, and they were 15,000 short. So it might be that with this resolution, at least, that shows at least the town's commitment, not in terms of dollars, but at least in terms of its authorization in spirit of the staircase, that the grant would be a little bit more forthcoming, and they might get more and get enough maybe even to seal the deal.
Anybody have a question?
I have a comment about the whole deal, if I can.
Sure.
You know, if I was living down there on the road next to the staircase, right now that park is probably utilized on a very infrequent basis. And the adoption of a staircase there, I think, would impact the number of people there. I mean, that's what the whole idea of the whole staircase is, to make the shoreline accessible there. And I would be concerned as a homeowner, especially an adjacent homeowner, to having something like that going in. I've asked this question before, and I don't know if it's ever been answered adequately, but my question is this, does that follow along with zoning to put a staircase in? So I looked it up a little bit, and I think that, golly, I hope I have that information here. Yeah, I looked it up here, and this is out of the zoning book. It says for parks. It says, let me see here. Parks, it says facilities for this is 4.071, print A. Facilities for active recreation is defined in section 1302, and I'll read that real quick for you. Recreational uses, areas and activities orientated towards potential competition or involving special equipment, including but not limited to playgrounds, sports fields, courts, zip lines, paintball, disc golf, jumping, bungee jumping, climbing walls, towers, swimming pools, and skating rinks, shall be located a minimum of 75 feet from lot lines when a budding property contains a single-family home or if vacant is located in a zoning district where single-family residents are permitted. I read that to say you have to have 75 feet from one property line to the facility, and then 75 feet from the facility to the next property line. That lot is 75 feet wide. It would be physically impossible to do that. You would have to ask for variance from this, and I don't know what your hardship would be. So I'm hesitant to endorse something that I don't think meets the county zoning. Let me back up and, when I was a kid, in 1958, I figured it out. I was using hookah gear to go snorkeling with. In the early 60s, I was scuba diving up here, and that was one of the main lures I had in Door County. I'm a PADI certified diver, and I've been diving now for 50 years. But I'm concerned if we allow something like this to promote it, and it doesn't meet the zoning, I think we need to clarify that before we start promoting something that might not be allowable by zoning.
My understanding was, I think they already have checked with zoning. I thought John mentioned that early on.
That was the first thing I think he checked.
I mean,
Yeah.
I'm reading it, the zoning right here.
Right.
Yeah, I'm not entirely certain that I agree with your interpretation of that, though. All of the sporting activities that are mentioned in there, but not limited to, are an actual activity happening at that location. This is access to,
Yeah, but
no different than a person doing a staircase from their private residence to the water.
Yeah, but the people can be parking there. It says activities oriented and involving special equipment. That's certainly, scuba diving involves special equipment.
Bud's got it.
Before we get into this too far, I have in my hand a Door County zoning permit, regular zoning permit, dated 11/7/2014, to the town of Liberty Grove for a shoreline access stairway as per plan submitted to the Door County Planning Department on November 7th of 14 at 12832 Kenosha Drive. And it says the stairway shall be unenclosed and shall not exceed 4 feet in width.
That's
So-
Kenosha Drive, that's a different location.
No, that's Kenosha Drive there.
Oh, that's where you want to put it.
Well, that's what the park address is, right?
Correct.
So I think I thought it was going on the Wisconsin Bay Park.
No.
Port de Moore.
Oh,
Port
that's
Demore.
much wider.
Yeah,
Okay, that would fit then. I was at the wrong location.
okay. Okay, any other comments, questions? In lieu of reading this, excuse me, Lou,
Yes.
would you like to make a motion to adopt resolution, unless you'd like to read it?
No. I would move that the town support resolution, or adopt, resolution 15-7, supporting the staircase and Port de Moore Park.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Seconded by Gaz. Any further discussion?
Does that say Port Demore Park in there someplace or not?
Yeah,
Yeah.
second
Whereas.
whereas.
Okay.
All in favor of the resolution indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Okay, discussion, possible action, adopt a town tower ordinance. We haven't got an ordinance in place at this point in time. I wanted to get this back on the table for discussion. Janet has contacted, because there's a provision in the new ordinance that says in effect that no new applications, or the applications basically are the same as they were previously. So I don't know if Voss has gotten back to you yet on that. We were asking him what exactly his application was before. So we have, we understand what he had to do in the application. Janet also has suggested maybe the possibility, once we get into this, is to take a look at the county ordinance and simply eliminate, what is it, 1403? That has provision for internet towers. So we're taking this one step at a time, trying to figure out what to do on it. My personal feeling is to go ahead and that, adopt an ordinance and just get it done, because I think, my understanding of this is that the county's ordinance is far more than what the state ordinance was, that they've really, added a lot more to it. And I think the gentleman that spoke earlier hit the nail on the head, that this flies in the face of what we know is important to this town, and that's high-speed internet will, have a very positive impact on both the residents and perhaps future businesses. But that's my personal opinion. Yeah, please.
I talked to Mariah also about this at length last week, along with talking about some other things. We kind of got off on this topic as well. And don't get me wrong, I'm in favor of Liberty Grove, whenever they can, doing their own ordinances. But in other areas where I've worked with Mariah, she's always been a straight shooter, and she has not steered me wrong. And I have not yet researched the 2 points that she brought up. She said, what precisely seems to be the objection by Door County Broadband? And I said, it's my understanding that there are 2 that are impediments to them building towers in the manner that they have in the past. And one is the FCC approval, and the other is the required engineering study. And what Mariah told me, and again, I have not researched this, but I would like to, is that both of those things are already state requirements and should be being done. And she said, as far as the FCC approval, that is a no-fee, no permit required approval. And she said, an engineering study, if the person who's putting up the towers is putting up the same type of tower every time, is a one-time
One-time.
$350 fee.
That's correct.
So is this all about $350? Well, I mean, I guess I need to learn more about what the big objection is, if that's the only thing that's being objected to.
My email to him was that I wanted to know what kind of permits and fees were required when he put up the quarry tower.
Okay,
I got an email back from him. There were no regulations, so none of that applied. I emailed him back and I said, it's my understanding, no matter when you did this, you should have needed to do an FCC and an FAA, and that's what I haven't heard back yet.
okay, okay. That's consistent with what Mariah told me too. Okay.
And just
Thanks.
going one step further, we're focused on the little broadband towers, which I'm very much in favor of. But if the town takes on the tower ordinance, when a 1,000-footer comes to town, I don't think we're prepared to take care of it. If someone wants to put up another tower at, like, up at,
Well, I think we're strictly talking internet tower.
well, you can't adopt your own ordinance for only part of it, I don't think, John. I think it's either,
Well, that's what the county just did.
They
They
it's
covered-
comprehensive
they
for
covered
everything.
all, with the exception of the ham radio,
Mhm.
they covered
That's-
all towers.
Yeah, ham radios have always been exempt.
Well,
I think it's maybe in the state thing, not a state, but,
well, I think we have to get all this information together, and it kind of, a couple things bother me. One is, I know that Door County Broadband had extensive discussion, had discussions with the Corporation Council for the county in reference to this, And also, I believe there were communications from some of the other providers, cell tower providers and so forth, that were not in favor of the way this ordinance was written.
Yeah.
And it's, you know, it's just the question is, why did we go this far and then come back and tell everybody, oh, no, it doesn't affect anybody? When apparently, obviously, they felt it did, but we have to get that information and find out what's really going on here. Plus the fact that the county has said, well, you know, the town can adopt their own ordinance, that's not a problem. So it seems a little muddled at this point, it just needs
Yeah.
to be straightened out, so. All right, anybody else, any comments, questions? Moving right along, correspondence. Ooh, not much.
From the planning department, we have a text amendments being sponsored by the RPC related to woodland clearing regulations in chapter 5 that they wish to clean up because it treats woodland plantations the same as a regular woodland, so they want to make some adjustments on that. The public hearing for it would be no sooner than notice procedures would begin no sooner than November 13th, so that it can be on the next Town Plan Commission meeting. The clearing staff is going to start cutting the autumn olive invasive plants that are in Fitzgerald Park, and they'll be stacking them up. There's quite a bunch of it there. And then they'll leave it there for our guys to haul away when they get a pile of it. They're also gonna be working on the adjacent property, Elson Bay property and the Gustafson property too, which abuts the Fitzgerald Park. The RPC on Thursday, November 5th, will be working on a zoning text amendment to amend chapter 3A shoreline zoning regulations that reflects compliance with changes in the state budget. There's no action that can be taken with the towns on it because it's a statutory thing and it takes precedence over anything else. So that's on Thursday, November 5th, starting at 2 o'clock. Public education and discussion meeting on planning and zoning issues, Thursday, October 29th at the Government Center. The agenda will be discussion of the recently adopted communication towers ordinance, shoreland zoning changes in the state budget bill that I just mentioned, wetland zoning overlay mapping project, update on development of the county hazard mitigation plan, and open discussion on county zoning regulations and procedures. And that's again Thursday, October 29th, starting at 5:30 at the Government Center. A notice from Otis that our elevator has been inspected and is in good shape at the fire station.
$78.
Yeah. Final estimate of January 1st, 2015, population 1,763. And approximately 1,527 of that number is of voting age.
What's two numbers again, Bud? 1,700 and what?
63,
Huh?
and then 1527 are voting age.
That's huge.
The Board of Adjustment will be meeting 2 nights if necessary, Monday, October 26th, and Tuesday, October 27th, to take up the Barkey appeal of the RPC decision granting the permit for Camp Zion. That's Monday, October 26th for the first meeting at 6:30 p.m. We have a request from Door property owners, Michael Serpe, president, and the Door County chapter of Wild Ones Natural Landscapes, Peter Sigmund, president, to stop the indiscriminate mowing of roadsides. And they have 6 items items here that they note for harmful activities or results of mowing. And they have 3 suggestions to modify the mowing. And that's it.
Okay. All right, future meetings.
Monday and Tuesday, as I mentioned, Board of Adjustment. Monday, 8:30 a.m., Mr. Walker and myself, and I don't know if he grabbed anybody else at the Highway Committee meeting, will be doing the biannual road tour to rate the roads, which needs to be done by December. The treasurer's meeting will be held the 29th in Sturgeon Bay at 7 o'clock with Jay Zahn and his staff. The annual meeting to update tax bill information and anything new that's come along through the treasurer's office. November 2nd, Highway, 8 a.m. November 3rd, Parks and Property, 8 a.m. November 4th, Town Board. November 9th, Monday, Fire Board, 8 a.m. November 10th, Board/Finance at 6:30 p.m. The 11th, Plan Commission at 7. 16th, Monday, IT/T Committee at 7 o'clock. 18th, Town Board. The Utility Committee will be holding their budget hearing that day at 4 p.m. And the 26th and the 27th, the hall will be closed for Thanksgiving observance. And that takes us to December.
Good. Okay, thank you. And I will spare everybody a rule tonight. I move we adjourn.
Second.
All in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
That eligible voter thing gives you a good idea of whether full workforce is.
Well, not really. I mean,
Well, it's.
I'm 70 years old, I'm in that number.